Hello. I want to talk some more and have this be the third session from the other two I posted the other night. Like to finalize this one and apologize for a phone cutting off and not having an appropriate ending or a nice ending. But just want to say how much this journey has been amazing and so wonderful and I wouldn't even say eye opening because it's like spirit opening and just how my perception of life has changed and overall my relationship with my sons and with my girlfriend, future wife I call her, and her kids, and everything is just on a positive level. And there's hiccups and some setbacks, but they're getting more minor and less frequent, and influence that sharing love and just trying to be loving and be nice and seek goodness instead of flying off the handle or being angry and just trying to brush stuff off. And that's become part of my angle now, and not jumping into that temper. And that was something that it's hard for a lot of people, and we lose sight, and fear drives anger and being attacked, and confusion and all kinds of things make us scared and fearful, and that's why I think everyone that looks to the Lord and looks to someone else for help and realizes that that's out there, and it's the best thing that you could possibly do for yourself and your family and anyone you really care about and love, and and spreading that word to me is what everyone needs. And I've been reading some Isaiah in the Bible, and it's like 66 chapters, but they're all like really amazing and beautiful. And it talks about a lot of coincidences, not coincidences, but overlap with the Urantia book, and a lot of it brings about some of the end days for when earth and heavens will be made new. And it's talking about, in my opinion, this planet and Jerusalem, the headquarters planet of Satania, where there's a mansion worlds for more training and part of the ascension scheme, but that's all still in the evolutionary worlds. And that's where people get somewhat confused about Lucifer being cast down from heavens, and how he really wasn't in the actual central universe where they're created perfection with the billion spheres and the heavenites and all different types of administrators, where there's no sin or evil there. It's not even, it's only a theory. So that's one of the confusions of how can Lucifer ties into all this and the rebellion and whatnot. But he was in charge of the system of Satania, and his lieutenant is Satan, another angel of the Creator's son, and they call that order Atlantan and Deck. And there's different primary, secondary, tertiary, what have you, but there's all kinds of things they break it down into in these 2,000 pages, and it's amazing. But I want to get back to this, what they call light and life, and these constellations are set in light and life. And you can look out in the sky and see these constellations, whether or not they've changed over time. Pretty certain not. Orion's belt's been pretty much the same, and there's all kinds of information out there about the stars and the universe, and there's a lot of overlap. There's some that aren't in agreement, but if you think about what I was talking about in the last one, and I didn't get to finish my thought about being in this swirling universe and around a central hub, and the dynamics of light and those, you think of ghost stars, how the light receiving to us is, from millions of light years away, that planet or sun could already be gone. Well, if it's set in light and life, then it's never ending, and that energy is not going to be dissipated. It's still going to be there. And like in Isaiah, it says, a second here. This is chapter 60 and verse. We'll start like around 18. No longer will violence be heard in your land, nor ruin or destruction within your borders, but you will call your walls salvation and your gates praise. The sun will no more be your light by day, nor will the brightness of the moon shine on you, for the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your glory. Your sun will never set again. That's S-U-N, son. And your moon will wane no more. The Lord will be your everlasting light. So much beautifulness in this Isaiah. There's, you want to look at one book about more truth and feels hitting home where God lives. It's it's one good book if you have to stay in the Bible and you can't search for truth and love and goodness elsewhere. I mean, that's kind of silly, but it's everywhere, and we can create it in more places. We can write it in our poems. We can express it to our children. We can express it to our enemies, and before you know it, there's going to be less and less enemies, and more friends, and more people out there that start to understand with their heart more than with their minds, and realize that this materialism, this material world isn't the final goal. It's not what we should be striving for. We should be striving for a spiritual attainment and embracing love and trying to spread the God of love. But in the Urantia book, it describes the spheres of light and life, and basically it says in only those planets which attain existence in the main circuits of superuniverse are assured of continuous survival. But as far as we know, these worlds settled in light and life are destined to go on throughout the eternal ages of all future time. So it just says, the sun will never set again. Your Lord will be your everlasting light. And how you conceptualize that or whatnot, but in those days when the land will be ours, and you can read more in Isaiah, and it describes it. And that's not the only chapter. It talks about redemption of the Lord and whatnot of basically, to me, how the planet's going to be settled in light and life. And it's so wonderful and glorious to think about it. If you're ever down in the dumps, you pick up the Bible and read about some of this stuff. And Isaiah is a great place to start. And, people want to talk about the contrast of what the Bible says about God and his wrath. And I think that's where a lot of confusion is too. And, I don't know how the judgments of God will come down, but I'm going to try and trust in his mercy, and all the things I've done, are terrible. It says you can be forgiven from, and I think a lot of those forgiveness has to do with your capacity for forgiveness too. And walking around with grudges and hate and negativity just isn't the way to do it. And if you embrace spirituality and seek within yourself that divinity, that infinite particle that's been blessed to all of us, and it's just a go from there, and it'll explode. And that's where Jesus talks about you need to be reborn in the spirit. It's a new birth. And I didn't ever get it. I didn't understand what that meant. I'm like, well, how do you do that? And well, it's something that I didn't really focus on. I just started researching and been true seeker, and found this Urantia book, and I can credit that. I credit the Bible, but I might have got there with the Bible. It's a place a lot of people have gotten there and been reborn and understand it. I'm maybe in my mind just more show me, let me see it. And Apostle Thomas might have been that way, but he had the guy right there in the flesh, like, why do you doubt? But We have his word and we have what's left over, and some of it might be distorted and whatnot, but you can filter out the distortions and really hone in on the truth. And that's where your heart comes in to know what's really true. When you look at your kids, when you want the best for them, and you know, it's something that's not material, you really want them to be healthy and understanding and fit into this world that's benevolent, right? You don't want them to be riches and gods. I mean, if that's your concept, then I think you're on the wrong path. You can gain the world to lose your soul. You can only serve one master, and wealth's not the one I'm going to serve. Um, People say, my reward's in heaven. Well, I'm not looking for a reward. I'm looking just to share the good news and try to be loving to people and and more understanding and search within myself. But anyway, I wanted to get that out there, and also let's look at this timeline and see about what we can see down on paper. So I got back up to my mess up, yeah, and drawn the nebula formation and Dranova, and basically it has it as number 8,926 I believe it is. That's that number of the nebula that's been out there making existence and formations. We kind of hone into this shadow. Started at basically these life carriers came down and brought in some tiny life into the oceans and started it all. And according to Urantia book, that's how we evolved, is from these single celled organisms that basically start out in the briny oceans of salt water. And most science textbooks you pick up will say the key to life is salt water or seawater. And kind of funny how that's how life started on this planet. And now every little interstitial cell of ours is encased in the same briny solution, or pretty close to. Imagine there's probably differences in just regular humans, but um, anyway, we even got the dinosaurs on here, which the Rancher books ties in really nicely about how existence was. And that's one thing a lot of people don't like about the Bible. It doesn't talk about past dinosaurs and what's evident on this planet, what has happened, and honestly and truthfully. And of course, some things get distorted and whatnot. But well, let's see. Timeline's not exactly in the perfect increments. There are different gaps, and I kind of go a little bit in smaller increments. But Maine basically appears about 1 million BC, after the trees and after the animals evolve and whatnot. I mean, it gets into a little bit, but not a whole lot. But it does talk about the first humans basically being born and realizing that they're way different than their family and their mother and father, and their just basically their family, and they tried to teach them. And they just weren't getting it and whatnot, so they knew they were way different and mentally, and they were the first two that were able to actually be God conscious and whatnot. But they had 19 children and got 20 generations of clan unity before they basically separated in different cliques or have you and whatnot. And and it goes on and talk about how from those there's other humans that evolved from them, and some of them split off and formed like these Neanderthals, and you might have heard of like the Decenniovans and the Java Man. That's keyed into right here. I got him, Java Man. Canaanites migrate west through Europe to France and England, east as far as Java, and that's what they found, that skeleton that they're trying to piece into where he fits into the evolution of man, or missing links or whatever. But the Rancher Buck claims we actually came from some lemurs. We're our last primate. We evolved from some smart little lemurs and the frog was a big key in the evolution. It's amphibian, makes sense with water and land. So anyway, we can progress here, and one of my favorite parts of learning about the Urantia book is 500,000 BC. We get this planetary prince Caligastia, and if you want to call anyone the devil, that would be who you would call as planetary prince. And there is references to him in the Bible, not by that name, but as a prince, in my opinion. And I could find those. They just come to mind, but I'm not sure what exactly they are. But anyway, there's all kinds of stuff went down here, and here's where the some of the more circles get complete with the mighty men of old in the Bible. It says in these basically these gods came down and mated with the daughters of men and created these mighty men of old and these titans or whatnot. And here you have these the 100 staff of the planetary prince, basically. Let's see, I have them over here. And there's 10 of them that lead 10 separate councils, basically to help the evolving humans become a little bit more spiritual and less warfare like, more try to get along, after half a billion years or half a million years of warring and basically fine tuning their survival skills and traits and trying to live together. You got to live peacefully enough to conquer and create a new culture, whatnot. But they were also in the habit of killing off their firstborn son to God, which to me is so silly how that ever came about. But fear drive humans to do all kinds of stuff. First actual city they built was Dalmatia, headquarters of Prince, and is located off the coast of Persia, and supposedly it's been found. You can look that online if you want to, but I haven't really researched that too much. But it's under in Persian Gulf, whatnot. There's all kinds of references like that can be correlated if you had the time and money. I'm sure I don't have the money, but I'm sure someone out there that's been latched onto this is gonna be like, oh, let's go find some of this. But anyway, we have basically down to this planetary prince. We get his 100 staff, and during this time, 500,000 BC, it's going all smooth. They're trying to teach humans, and I'm not sure, what kind of humans we're talking about as far as they might be in Cro-Magnon or some of the more intellectual, but there's been already a mass of migrations and people been in and out of the land going around for basically 500,000 years. What allowed them, they were basically kind of encased in some of the glaciers and availability of their own genius, navigating the waters or whatnot. But anyway, about 200,000 BC, this Lucifer rebellion started, where Lucifer, as a primary land in the deck sun, had been watching over the system of Satania since 700,000 BC. 500,000 years, he's been administrating to the ascension of pilgrims of time, and talk about him getting jealous and wanting to know, about God, and seeing all these lowly creatures of us surpassing his realm, and then I'm sure after so many years of that's what kind of caused him to want to be surpassing his station and to become set up his throne and on high himself or whatnot. And it says that in the Bible in Isaiah as well, in one of the earlier chapters. And it doesn't describe him as Lucifer. It says, different, actually, they'll say a son of dawn. And that to me is like early light, one of the first creations. And 7 orders that were created, we're being the 7th. The sons of Anandek were one. Melchizedek was also one. Um, Sorry, I can get back to some of this timeline, but anyway, to the Lucifer Rebellion, there's so many of these 100 staff, and they had guys underneath them, and they basically we actually had a Lucifer manifesto about uh, liberty and whatnot, and he's thought the reality of the Universal Father. Lucifer charged that the Universal Father did not really exist, that physical gravity and space energy were inherent. The universe government of the Creator's Son, Michael, or this one website actually I just watched, I pronounced it Makale, 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 something like that. Anyway, Lucifer contended that the local system should be autonomous, protested against right of Michael to assume sovereignty of Nebadon in name of hypothetical Paradise Father. And then the attack upon the universe's plan of ascendant and moral training, Lucifer maintained that far too much time and energy was spent on the scheme of so thoroughly training ascending mortals in the principles of universe administration, principles he alleged were unethical and unsound. Liberty was quickly translated into license by half-evolved primitive men. And so basically, what they quit teaching and basically gave license to so many of the more the powerful, or some of the staff that actually went with him and Caligastia, and basically said Caligastia is now the ruler of the earth, and you'll bow down to him. And this guy named Van the Man, he decided that no, that's not gonna how it works. This is not what we're set for. And these 100 staffers have to remind you that, or not remind you, but tell you that they were volunteers of Jerusalem citizens. They had been actual mortals on different planet inhabited spheres that came about to volunteer for this staff role, and there was 875,000 volunteers, I believe the Urantia book says, and then Caligastia picked 100, and Van was one of the 10 that led, and he led the Supreme Court of Tribal and coordination of racial coordination. So he's trying to get people to coordinate and become not killing each other but living together peacefully. And so he sided with what I would say the good guys, or righteousness, love, not relationship to liberty. So anyway, so there was some crucial period between when all this was going down. They call a 7-year period when basically that was the war in heaven. There was petitions, and Van actually sent a petition to Lucifer at first when Caligastia decided that he was going to join him and become the ruler of the universe, or ruler of Earth, instead of the ambassador, teacher. So Van sent Lucifer a message saying, "Hey, this is going on, and we need to correct this." And Lucifer basically was like, "No, you worship him." And then so Van sent a message up to Urantia, to higher up, to where Emmanuel, the Union of Days representative, ambassador of the Universal Father, and basically went above and was like, "Hey, this is going on down here." And then your ancient book says that message, or a response to that message, was lost in or had been just found in some kind of almost space transport energy circuit or something. I don't know. But anyway, so after and there's a lot of information to take in here, for sure. It brings in the tree of life, where these guys could, when they were in from back in 500,000 BC to before the rebellion, were partaking in the tree of life. And basically they had these bodies made for them. So these Jerusalem citizens of these 100 staffers volunteered for this job and had these dual bodies made for them, so they could consume the earthly foods and water and whatnot. And water, I'm sure, is something that's universal or pretty much an evolutionary uh, scheme or universes. So anyway, we also had circuitry for light, and this fruit of life has these fruit that are light, have you, and you consume them, and they sustain this basically immortality in the evolutionary time spheres or time realm, and so that basically the van secured that tree of life, and then basically the staffers that joined the rebellion, and they end up dying off, and but they also had uh, went into the daughters of men and created their own offsprings in line of those mighty men. So those are those like titans, and you picture Hercules or whatever, and uh, some of the other Greek heroes or whatever have you. But there's even a Van Lake in Turkey still, and Van Fortress even, and but Van has been lost to our records, and he is probably one of the most amazing characters this planet has seen as far as backing the Universal Father and trying to do what was right in the face of such rebellion and temptation. It's just beautiful to think about this guy. Some you probably even talk to. I don't know how busy or how much service going on in the other realms in the spirit world, and service of God is for eternity. So imagine that eventually, in some of that time, you might be able to chat with him and thank him for so much wonderful steadfastness and yeah, it's just so heartwarming. But anyway, I've just not completed, but there's a lot of information here. I don't know how well it'll be able to be watched or paused and to read this stuff. And some of it, I'm sure, is controversial and maybe make people angry, but I'm not trying to present anything to do anger, just trying to spread the love. And to me, the more I understand, the more it's given me the ability to look past my anger and to try and be a little bit better each day. And it's amazing how much growth has already happened to where I can seek out a problem that's arise instead of hide from it. And then before you know it, there's a lot of hugs involved and some crying maybe and what have you. But I got these 7 adjutant mind spirits, and here's how it ties in how animals and Mother Nature and just those feelings you get. There's these 7, and adjutant just means aid, and they help with life in general. You got the spirit of intuition, understanding, courage, knowledge, counsel, worship, and wisdom. And the last 2, worship and wisdom, seem to only affect mortals of God consciousness, got the ability to know God. So like the animals, those don't really affect them, but the rest supposedly do affect animals and gives them, the intuition, some knowledge, to nurture their young and what have you. There's all kinds of writing here on how much you can really see or get there. But also there's different developed races over time, and I've got a little talk about that. The first one being the Andinites from Andinfanta and their progeny or their offspring. The 6 Sanjic races. Here is the origin of the colored races, and I'm not trying to be racist or whatever, but or prejudice or anything. I'm just presenting some information that is out there and correlates to today. So they have all 6 of the colored races, and they even had orange, green, blue, some that have emigrated and mixed over time and admixed and back and forth and whatnot. And even the Noadites were those mighty men of old, and then you had these Mannonites that were derived from the group of 144 loyal Andonites to which Amadon belonged, and they had their assistants basically to Van and the staffs, the planetary staff. So we're getting into pretty much a long one here, but we'll probably end this here soon. But the other races were the Adamic, and they were violet, and they also glowed. So when they wore clothes, their heads glowed. So at night they kind of looked like they're wearing a halo, and that's supposedly the origin of the halo. They're a material son and daughter, and their potential progeny, and they were supposed to basically be biological uplifters of the human race and ambassadors, and still supposed to be here, but they defaulted and messed up in God's plan, and didn't have enough patience and years of patience, and wanted to help out in a way that bypassed the plan of God, and some of that's hard to understand and whatnot, but find the book, pick it up, read it. Eventually I'll probably explain some more about Adam and Eve. But then you have what it calls this andite, and this primary blends of pure line violet and the noadites and the evolutionary peoples. So it's like three major blends, and some got higher percentage of the Adamic blood, which basically explains as the plasma that's available from these sons of God can basically help fight off, you know, what have you, your immunity, and it's just a better plasma, I guess, than what has been evolved on this planet. And so when you mix it all together, you get hybrids, and the hybrids are usually more fitting to survive and you last on this planet with all the other things going on, bacterias and viruses, whatever. And I'm not sure that doesn't really talk about microbiology and Urantia book too much, so uh, tie that in however you want. But anyway, we'll get more into the Adam and Eve and the second revealed truth. The first being this Prince Caligastia, and basically he was a planetary prince. And right now, instead of him, we got Bashavente Melchizedek, and of course, we always have Jesus, always. So I want to conclude that, and basically we'll see some more of this timeline. Sorry for this blurriness; it's silly. But I'll get passed down, and we'll get down to more. And if you got any complaints and comments, just let me know if you can't see anything, or if you can't read any of this, whatnot have you. I'm sure some of it, my camera's just bad, and hopefully invest in some other better method here or something. But I'll review this and see how it looks. All right. Well, I just want to say peace to everyone, and it's all wonderful to be alive.